Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the August Prestige Global Meeting Sources Education Webinar Series. My name is Sasha Andreev. I'm going to be your host today as we explore this month's topic, the evolution of CSR, what's new, what's next. Now, if this is your first time here, we are thrilled to have you. And if you've joined us for a previous webinar, welcome back. We are so glad that you are here. Now, in this webinar series, we've been exploring a wide range of topics from personal well-being and elevating your LinkedIn game to revenue management and AV budget and so much more. And it is all part of our mission to empower you, our clients, with the knowledge and tools to thrive. Now, a little bit about us. Prestige provides full-service meetings and event support for event planners, and we are versatile. We make our clients' lives easier with site selection, event logistics, housing and flight management, creative marketing, and even personalized on-site support. It is all part of our mission to collaborate with a global network of hospitality partners to empower you to have success. And since part of that success is to stay informed and inspired, we've been reaching out to our industry friends to share some of their expertise in the various aspects that affect your professional and sometimes even your personal lives. And so why don't we meet one of those friends now? I would like to introduce today's presenters, Hannah Urano and Mary Paschen. I'm going to bring them up on screen. Welcome, Hannah and Mary, to our webinar.
Hi. Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. Now, I want to toot your horn just a little bit before you begin your presentation. Hannah Urano is the Director of Accounts at Give to Get, where she helps brands like AT&T, Cisco, Apple, and Bank of America turn CSR goals into purpose-driven engagement strategies. With over a decade in the nonprofit and social impact space, she blends deep CSR expertise with a sharp understanding of meetings and events, from planning and logistics to on-the-ground execution, ensuring strong partnerships and impactful results. Mary Paschen is the Senior Director of Impact Strategy and Design at Give to Get, where she leads the development of purpose-driven programs that connect companies, communities, and causes. Over the past decade, she's helped build the event execution team and oversee hundreds of volunteer experiences for Fortune 100 clients across the globe. I hope I got that all right, Hannah and Mary.
You nailed it.
Great. Well, so happy to have you. Hannah, right off the bat, could you just tell us a little bit about your company, Give to Get?
Sure. And you guys can hear me, okay?
Absolutely.
Awesome. So for those who don't know, Give to Get is a social impact company. We're based in Denver, but we operate globally. Our main work is helping our corporate clients turn their community and CSR goals into meaningful hands-on volunteer experiences for their employees. So design and execute, kind of do all things.
Amazing. And Mary, you're here joining us as well. And typically we have a single presenter in these webinars, but there's two of you today because I know that you bring unique perspectives on this subject. Can you tell me a little bit about your backgrounds and how you approach CSR differently?
Sure. I began about 10 years ago with school beautification projects. So redoing schools in a single day with about 400 volunteers. And since then, have not been able to stop doing programs. So finally moving kind of into a strategic position where I'm developing programs that I think are going to make big impacts for our partners and be really enjoyable also for volunteers.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then Hannah, how does your background differ or perhaps complement that?
Yeah, so I started in nonprofit and fundraising galas and did not like asking for money and got to kind of switch over to the corporate side. So I was project manager for Give to Get for a while, and now I'm the director of our account team. So work with clients every day to help their visions come to life.
Excellent. Well, before I let you go with your presentation, I just want to remind all of our viewers that Hannah and Mary are going to be posing some questions to the audience. So the chat function is open. Keep your fingers warm and ready and engage with us. And if you do have a question during the presentation, use the Q&A function that is at the bottom of your screen to message us with that question, and we'll address as many of those as we can after the presentation. We'll have a little live Q&A. And finally, this presentation, as always, is being recorded and made available for viewing on the Prestige Global Meeting Sources YouTube channel, so you can reference or share it with your colleagues or friends later. Hannah, Mary, I think we're all excited to hear about CSR and how it can be incorporated into event planning in a better way. So I'm gonna disappear and let you get going with your presentation. We'll see you afterwards.
Perfect. I just get it pulled up here.
All right.
All right. Are we good? Everyone can see?
I think
Okay.
take that as a yes.
Perfect. All right.
Awesome. Thank you again for having us. We're super excited. Obviously CSR events in general is a passion of ours. Super excited to share more about the current CSR landscape, how to deliver fresh new ideas for your clients. I think to start off, it would be helpful for us to hear a little bit from you guys. If you're able to drop in the chat, kind of your role, your on the Prestige side, if you're a Prestige client, where you're located is always awesome too. We're located in Denver, Colorado. And then my other question is, so during the planning process, when you get a request for a proposal, when do you typically get the ask to incorporate a volunteer activation? Is this part of the initial ask, or is this, like 2 weeks before the event?
Perfect. So while those answers are coming in, I wanted to start by saying we are your peers. And we have been in your shoes hundreds of times, and we just know how hard it is. So we want to be a resource for you and hope you can come out of this with a toolbox and some new strategies to be able to deliver impactful programs for your clients. We've seen.
Well, it looks like they're in presenter mode.
We're seeing presenter mode. I'm so sorry, everyone. Let's try this again. How about now? Better?
Nice.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. Sorry about that. Thank you for letting us know. Anyhow, we're just making fun of ourselves a little bit here, but yes, we are excited to share with you. I'm sure we may have even worked with some of you. So yeah, all to say we know what you're dealing with.
Awesome. Should we do the next slide quickly?
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, it's a little self-indulgent, but just some photos of some of our favorite events. As Mary said, we've truly done everything. We've driven the production trucks, done the overnight setup, planned events for CEOs, Guinness World Record events. One of my favorites, planned an event this year with 2-week lead time on an aircraft carrier. So it was a new one, but very fun for both of us. So enough of that. Really goal was just to convey that like we are one of you. And nothing makes us happier than knowing we put a successful purpose-driven event for our clients and the community. So how do you know an event's successful?
I think there are metrics, but as a lot of people in events know, you just feel it. You know that when something's been pulled off really well. But also, I personally measure it by when I have a participant who is talking to me about how they remember last year's event and how excited they are to participate again. Or, true story, is when someone's come up to me and said that they grew up at the Boys and Girls Club, and that was the nonprofit we were supporting at this event, and they know they just wouldn't be where they were without it. So for me, that's how I know that an event is successful.
Oh, I like that we have another Colorado person. Yes, I totally agree with you. It really is kind of those little magic moments of human connection. So our goal today is to help you create those moments and not just check a box. So before we get to the how, I think it's helpful to make sure everyone's kind of up to speed on what trends we are seeing in the world of CSR. And while I'm talking, if there are trends you guys are noticing, especially in the last like year or so, certainly drop those in the chat.
Oh, Sarah, I see. That CSRs are usually talked about much earlier in the initial stages, but also last minute asks. I think that covers it for us as well. So, but good to know we're all in it together.
All right, so the state of CSR. Today's landscape, there is a push to align CSR with business goals, and that's not slowing down. It just is maybe approached a little differently. Companies are shifting cause area focus to issues that are perceived as better for business, favoring less politically charged issue areas, and kind of favoring STEM and community revitalization over race, equity, and gender equality. And we all get that. The bottom line is that companies can't really sit back on the sidelines anymore. Employees expect company-driven social impact initiatives. Consumers are beginning to expect it, and so are shareholders. So CSR is becoming fully integrated and woven into the overall business strategy. And I feel like we can all agree that's a good thing. So let's begin where this all usually begins, which is the ask.
And by the ask, you mean when the ask comes in from the client. And as Sarah mentioned, maybe early, maybe last minute, but we are providing some tips of how to get the most of that first interaction and strategically plan from there.
Awesome. So as Mary was kind of saying, and how our roles differ, I typically do a lot of the project scoping with our clients. And as much as possible, I always like to try to ask questions to get a better understanding to the motivation behind the ask to incorporate this activity. So who's asking and why, who's the main stakeholder, and then who's the final decision maker. Most importantly, what's the budget and whose budget is this coming from? Who controls the budget really does tell you the most about the motivation behind the ask as well as the goals.
So as we know, the ask can come from anywhere, but for us, if it comes from someone in HR, chances are ultimately this is about employee engagement. And the data shows that when companies provide employee engagement, that correlates to higher employee retention and satisfaction, and ultimately the company's bottom line and what makes them successful. So that is one clue to us about what the importance is and what kind of metrics we may be trying to measure.
Yeah. I think on the other hand, if it's the sustainability team, and sometimes CSR sits on the sustainability team, if they're the ones making the ask, we're talking kind of green, zero waste events with a local environmental impact. So a lot of volunteer activation requests around the circular economy. In the last few years, it's been an increasing trend, could potentially decline, but we haven't seen that yet on our end.
So beyond the motivation, it's also really important to understand the goals. So those also have logistical implications, which I think we all have experienced. But for some companies, integrating CSR experiences is now company-wide mandate. They have to have an event or have to have a CSR component to every event that they host. It could also be for team building or bringing together different departments that don't typically work together. Or it could just be that we're focusing on a simple cause area. So hunger or environment or one of the company's pillars. But whatever the reason, it's also really important to know why we are doing this, because that shapes what it looks like, how it feels, and ultimately, what what we are delivering.
Definitely. And kind of going back to company-wide mandate, we have a client who, I guess, work with many companies who have the big sponsorship, the global sponsorships, Olympics, World Cup, PGA Tour, and it is a company mandate to incorporate in all meetings, something that goes back to this big new announcement. And so that really does help kind of drive motivation, the goals. We know, they want an activity that connects back to the money they're putting into the community and in sports. So it is helpful to ask those clarifying questions. So my number one pro tip during this information gathering phase is to ask your client if they're in touch with their internal CSR department. Think definitely drop in the chat if you are like working with the CSR department, something you're familiar with. If that's a new thing, it's kind of been consistent across the board. I think it seems obvious, but we found it's definitely not. I think Give to Get, half of the clients we work with are CSR teams and the other half are meeting planners. So these could be internal meeting planners or third-party vendors as well. And really, too often a planner will reach out to us to bring in a volunteer event for a company that we've worked with for years and we have a good relationship with their CSR director, and make a phone call and find out the CSR team has no idea this like event or conference is even happening. And I think that's not something that we would have typically thought, but looping them in early really is always a win. They may have budget they can contribute to this event. They usually have existing national nonprofit partners they can leverage, and sometimes they have ready to go programs that they've developed in partnership with these nonprofits that are plug and play, and they make planning easier and more impactful.
Yeah, we were surprised to find out sometimes that there'd be these events going on and the CSR team weren't aware of them. And honestly, that is like a shortcut when it comes to finding nonprofits and building relationships. Highly recommend you see if that your client is tied in to their internal department. But now that we've covered the CSR landscape, just a little background of what life is like for nonprofits right now.
This is Mary's expertise.
And I think the overall state of the state on the nonprofits is doing more with less. So we are seeing a lot of budget cuts. We're seeing a lot of staff turnover. They haven't received funding that they were allocated from last year. They're waiting on funding from this year. And another implication from the change in administration is that in the big, beautiful bill, there's changes that disincentivize corporate giving. So we don't know how that's going to play out, but I think, just in the back of your minds, more with less. So try to be patient and flexible. Their needs could be changing really quickly. They're also seeing a huge increase in people who need their services. So sometimes I like to share with people, that the harder they are to get a hold of, the more they probably need help. So just be patient and help your client understand what they're going through too. And I think the whole process will be easier for everybody.
Okay, so let's say I'm a meeting planner, not working with a CSR team or a third-party vendor like Give to Get. Where do I start? Like, what's one thing I should keep in mind when working with nonprofits?
All right, well, buckle up. This is my favorite topic. I can get a little soapbox, but I always think it's really important to either educate people or keep in mind about this inherent power imbalance between corporations and nonprofits. It's really important to understand that context, and that's not a value judgment. It just simply exists. And I'm going to give you an example of that, and I hope it will reflect how much this does impact your own event planning. So one of my main example I give is the classic bike build. And to preface, we've all been there.
My favorite example.
We've all done bike builds. Like, people love to do them. They're fun. They're very impactful. Kids are getting bikes, getting outside. But I'm going to pose a scenario, a hypothetical scenario. There's a client who wants to do a bike build for an event. And because of the number of participants they have and the budget that they have, everyone lands on 100 bikes being the goal. And
Okay, so I'm the client.
so you're the client. Yep.
So-
Okay. We've all been here. Yep.
Okay, so isn't it so great? We already have a Boys and Girls Club partner in Orlando that we donate money to every year. So they're gonna be so excited to get these bikes.
Great. That makes the planning job pretty straightforward. We already have a partner. We don't have to think much more about that part. Now let's figure out where to get the bikes, how to get them here, and everything else that you're dealing with when you're planning an event. But had someone reached out to the nonprofit partner, which we know this story because it's one of our partners, we might have learned ahead of time that the club has 150 students. They don't have 100. And they serve children from kindergarten to high school. So the range of bike sizes you would need is pretty large. And none of that was known in the planning process when the bikes were purchased and during all that planning part.
But I called the club and told them about the bikes and they're thrilled.
Of course, they are so grateful and can't believe that they were picked by this large company to be the recipient of these gifts. Like, it is very generous. So yeah, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
It's so generous.
It really is. But what you don't see on the other side, and what doesn't get back often to the clients or foundations on purpose by design by these partners, was that this was actually a burden. This was a big burden for the Boys and Girls Club. So not only did they not have enough bikes, they didn't match up with the children's ages. So not everyone got a bike. They also didn't come with locks or helmets.
Yikes.
So in the end, the Boys and Girls Club couldn't, they had to rent storage space, move the bikes into them. The kids, some of them had hurt feelings, and then they ended up having to use their own funds to buy the locks and the helmets because they didn't feel right about giving their kids these bikes who might use them to go to school or, to come to the club, and also not with helmets, but then they were just going to be stolen. So it's got to be a full picture look at that. And I think this is just the invisible power imbalance at work. Really good intentions, really generous, a lot of wanting to help, but not as good of a result as it could have been. I think, though, the good news is that it could have been prevented with one phone call, right? We like to find out, exactly what they need, because I think we all want to do what they need, right? In this particular club, they needed furniture. They didn't have enough desks for all of their new kids who were coming in from another school. And I think we're in a unique position. Like, everyone who's joined here today, we actually have an ability to do something about this.
Yeah, so I think in accounts, in the work we do, never want to say no to a client. Solution oriented is always the best. So that's the good news. You can be the hero, you can be the one that offers a solution. So the club says they need new desks. Great, you're building furniture instead of bikes, kind of scratches the same itch. The attendees get to take a break from the conference sessions, the trainings, and do something with their hands. So really win-win.
Our other point of being a good partner is doing quality work. And we kind of have 3 guidelines for that. The kid test, easiest, easiest one to follow. If you would not give this item to your own child, then you probably shouldn't give it to anyone. And I think making a call out when we see this, especially sometimes with, some hygiene kit builds we've seen, there are, some items in there that I don't think you would give your child. So there's that one. Dignity of choice. This one is important. It's a concept a lot of nonprofits that work in hunger have moved to. And this is really important because I think it changes what kind of program you're going to provide. It's a focus on making sure that just because people are coming to nonprofits, they need support, they might need, community support, and they're having a very tough time, that they still can have dignity when they walk out. Do you want to explain like what this kind of looks like for these partners that we're working with?
Yeah, so I think something especially post-COVID we've seen is that food banks are moving away from kind of pre-packed food box models and more to a pantry model. So their clients are able to kind of enter more of a grocery store setup, select what they actually want, as opposed to be given like a box. This is what you need. It's for a nuclear family of 4. Doesn't necessarily take into account, health restrictions, religious beliefs, anything like that. So I think it's something that's helpful to keep in mind.
And the last tenet kind of is just to be aware that CSR teams and foundations are moving towards outcome instead of output. So that just means quality over quantity, which does kind of translate back to these big kit builds that are all about numbers.
So it was helpful context. So I feel like at this point kind of got the being a good partner with quality work and quality donations with quality outcomes down. So the final piece is just connecting volunteers to the impact. You're explaining the why, who's the nonprofit, who are the community members the nonprofit serves, and most importantly, this is what people want to hear, like, how am I making an impact for this nonprofit, for this community? So given all of the above and kind of following those tenets, this is the easy part. You're already doing this, and making that connection is what leads to your magical moment, I think. Easiest way to achieve this is have the nonprofit partner speak at your event, but they're understaffed, under-resourced, not necessarily an option. So just it's another opportunity to be the solution. You can pull a video from their YouTube page. We've pulled kind of case studies from impact reports before and written bullet points for a leader to present at the beginning of a project. So it's really just that human connection. Again, something a little extra outside of just slapping a logo on a slide.
I like to tell people about this fun fact about how for when we have a lot of programs where we incorporate writing cards to seniors, and they're given to people who use Meals on Wheels. And I can't tell you the difference it makes in what people are trying to accomplish when I share with them that over 70% of the Meals on Wheels participants, the only person they see in an entire month is their delivery person, and they're really alone and they're really isolated. And you cannot imagine that the most valuable thing you're doing today is writing this card. And it is making that connection because you're not at the nonprofit and you're not working with the client. So I really would stress that it makes a huge difference to the people who are participating.
And it's cost effective.
And it's cost effective, but it makes a huge difference. We have anything in the chat? Any questions? Okay, great. So now you have our tips on, the initial ask, how to be a good partner, way too much context, probably on CSR and nonprofits. So how do we design and execute an impactful event? Where do we start usually?
Yeah, so I think designing a program, always go back to the initial ask and the project goals. If you do that, you're already on the right track. Next piece of advice is that it is okay to be creative. There are so many other options besides putting attend using a ballroom with some assembly lines. I think we all know that gets a little stale, so definitely don't be afraid to switch up the format.
And other pro tip, after years of doing this, we just really discourage having programs that last longer than 90 minutes. It's bad for attention spans, and you really you want to end on a high note instead of it feeling stale at the end of it.
Yeah, that's true. I love a tight 90. Okay, so you don't have a dedicated session on the agenda, and we know fighting for time on the agenda is certainly a thing. That's totally fine. You will have the opportunity to incorporate volunteer activations into the existing agenda. So this is a great way to kind of layer purpose into the format that works for the events. This could include a pop-up project at registration, social impact zone during a welcome reception, networking break, that type of thing. We typically call activations that live on the side versus being dedicated time. They're not the main event, a pop-up. Another term I've heard used a lot recently is micro volunteering. So examples could be like a cart that rolls out and people are already standing in line for registration. Why not have them pack a kit for a local nonprofit while they're doing that? A video booth to record messages of encouragement to students who are interested in pursuing the STEM field, just kind of sharing your career advice and trajectory. Another really fun one, kind of going back to environment and circular economy, is having a bouquet making station where you repurpose the previous day's kind of centerpieces from a reception and make little bouquets for hospice patients, and write notes and deliver those for nonprofit.
I think the other strategy too is, and I think probably with all of you all, is to get people excited to participate, whatever the event is that you're putting on and all of the different parts. So, that's where you can incentivize participation. You can do passports, you can make it a competition. I think all things you've probably engaged with in the past, but it does, it's okay to incentivize volunteering. It makes it fun. It makes it a competition. It brings people together. We don't think there's anything wrong with that. In fact, you can always have the winner of the robot race, which is something we do. We have people race around obstacle courses. You can make a donation to the nonprofit in their name. So it should be a fun environment, and it should always have music, because it's just not as fun if there's no music. So, always a feature that we would highly recommend.
And if it's an activity that's part of like a fun night or a welcome reception and you're layering it in, don't put it in a separate room across the hallway. Or if you do, put a bar in that room too. Just incorporate it into the fun event. Okay, so like kind of going back to the examples you provided, I think it's a good time to just touch on matching the project to the participant.
Yep. So this is something we've also learned how to do through experience. So this is because we've experienced ones that are not good matches. So just know that, there's no science to it, but a little word association. Hannah, if you're designing a project, what do you think of? What kind of activations do you think of for a sales conference? What comes to mind?
Okay, this is fun. I guess what comes to mind for you guys too. Feel free to put in the chat. For me, I think salespeople, extroverts, networking, chatty, competition driven. What about you?
Don't have them do an individual project. That's like putting salespeople in jail. Like, they want to chat, they want to interact with each other and pop around. And but another quick one is nurses, our favorite volunteers of all time.
I think, yeah, nurses, patient,
Teachers will make sure the job gets done. Different than sales. It's just tying things to people's personality and their strengths and making sure they enjoy it. Because at the end of the day, we want people to enjoy volunteering, so they'll do it again.
Yeah, so I mean, point taken. You're not gonna have the same activities for sales conference as software engineers. Just I think another takeaway is remembering that attending a conference is not people's day job, except for maybe like all of ours. The beauty of a volunteer activation, and we hear this all the time, is that people can do something outside of their day job and they're getting an opportunity to do that, and often in a setting where like they're getting paid to do that. So you know, don't make them do something they do every day. Don't always have the engineers do a STEM project. We found, you know, they love to get crafty, paint a mural, or kind of build something with their hands, assemble furniture, something like that.
And our final recommendation, this one, hold on to your seats, is relinquish control. As planners, we know that's really hard. It's a muscle we've had to build up over time. But if you have a dedicated volunteer session, we often suggest a kind of a festival of giving model, which is multiple projects supporting multiple nonprofits in one room. And there's so many pros to this model. But we've seen some people shy away from it on the planning side because it just feels chaotic, that it's hard to picture. It doesn't, yeah, it gives them nervous energy.
Okay, so like what are the pros then?
Well, it helps keep things fun. And attendees can walk around and they can spend time participating in whatever project they want to. We frame it as an open house. People can learn about nonprofits, or they might be able to support a cause area that they feel really passionate about. And on a pragmatic level, if you have a big event where you can host something like this, you're not going to overload one nonprofit with thousands of in-kind donations that they can't deal with. And again, we're trying to be good partners. We're trying not to create a burden. So it's really helpful, and also just spreading the love in the community. So
it's a good tagline. Yeah, so I think these festival style events are always the most fun, especially as Mary said earlier, when there's a DJ. We've had like dance parties break out, which sounds very cheesy, but it has happened. So, and I think going back to the incentivization piece, good way to incorporate like a purpose passport, encouraging people to hit up multiple stations. We've seen this go awry a little bit when it's just planned to death. So pre-assigning attendees to stations, having them rotate every 30 minutes or pausing every 30 minutes to have a different nonprofit speak. I think that's kind of like just let it happen organically. So I think, yeah, I think we want to have time for Q&A. So yeah, main takeaway there, don't over program it, go with the flow. Kind of thoughts to wrap it up. I think at the end of the day, our takeaway, which there's really not a one size fits all event. Every ask is different, goals, clients, attendees, agendas, what have you. So just remember that you have your toolbox hopefully to rely on, aligning on the why early in the planning process, so it's not 2 weeks before the event, engaging CSR teams when possible, and then tailoring your activation to the attendees in the room. Mary, any final thoughts from you?
No, I think I'll turn over to Sasha. We ran a little bit over, so want to hear your questions. Yeah, Sasha, I'll turn over to you.
Well, thank you so much, guys. There's been so much, and I know you were getting to a lot of really interesting things at the end. So I just wanted to bounce right off of those, because some of the questions we had was actually, is there a project, because you've been mentioning some ideas that you've seen have the biggest impact in your recent experience?
Yeah, I think what comes to mind for me, we work with a client who does a huge conference every year, and they made the commitment. Think when you think about it this way, it makes sense. You're signing a multi-year hotel or conference center contract when you're going to an event location, and so they made the decision to kind of partner with the same nonprofit every year as well. So when they're having the event in this city for the next 3 years, they're going to partner with the same nonprofit. So I think that allowed The attendees who usually repeats year after year kind of see the continued commitment from this organization. It's part of what they do, what they care about. And I mean, there are a lot of great like closing the loop photos and getting to see the donations in the community and have an impact that way.
Got it. Well, one of the things that also that came in was, could you talk about some ways to find organizations beyond Googling in the area where the event would be? What are some resources for that?
Sure. And doubling down on the utilizing the client's internal CSR team. I would say it's almost 100% likely they will have good options for you, who are existing partners that they work with all the time, who can make that connection really quickly and not just, send an email at info@such and such nonprofit. Another way you might get some advice would be utilizing the local government. They are very tied in to nonprofits that are doing good in the community, and they'll have great resources for you because they'll also understand scope and size. If this is a big event and you're going to have a big impact, they'll be able to point you in the right direction too. So don't be shy. They want to help. And that's another good place I would say to start if you're not familiar with the community.
Mm-hmm. You said something really interesting about how to finding activities that are different than what people do every day to sort of switch it up. Are there any other tips that maybe we missed for somebody who's planning a CSR initiative, just to keep things engaging, especially what's on trend and especially with the holidays coming up in the coming months? Can you give us any suggestions regarding that?
I think that's a good point. Just like kind of keeping in mind the time that the event is taking place. So you might be getting the ask 6 months in advance, but the conference is going to be held during Women's History Month. So is there a way to tie that back into what you're going to have your attendees do? What else?
I think also it's, basic needs, right? Supporting people really struggling who have very little. It's hard to always make that like sexy and exciting, but it's still needed. And I think that like reinventing needs, I understand people want to do different things. We want to do different things too, but there is a baseline that what people need. And then it's also working with, again, nonprofits, finding out what their program is, their curriculum. They will tell you what they need. And listening to them is really how you are going to get good ideas and innovative ideas. And they want to help you, help them. So.
Yeah, and one of our folks at Prestige said CVBs can help in finding some of those nonprofits as well. And I'm curious because I know obviously you want to feel like there's a connection between the event and the activity, but like, is that important, or can they be two disparate things? Is it important to try to tie them together?
The event itself, the overall program.
The event itself and the activity that you're doing as part of your that initiative.
It's essential. If you want to have a good event, it's essential. Otherwise, people are just going through the motions, and it's just really a break in their agenda. So I think you have to make the most of it and to make sure that people are wanting to do these things and that we'll keep doing it next year and impacting the community.
But it's like all about the sell at the end of the day. Like you can sell that anything's really tying back to the business goals, and it's a leadership conference. You're helping develop new leaders in the community through a STEM activity. Can kind of tie anything back.
Got it. Well, this has been so helpful. And obviously, if folks would like to get in touch with you, we encourage you to reach out to your Prestige account manager, because both Mary and Hannah have a lot of expertise. And if you didn't have a question answered today, or if you're looking for some help, they would be the ones to help you out. So contact your Prestige account manager and they'll put you in touch with them. Hannah, Mary, thank you so much for being here. You've been so helpful, and it's been really interesting to hear more about what you do and how to do it better.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, everyone. It's a pleasure.
Well, this has been a really interesting perspective on things. And as you know, we have many more months of webinars coming up. In fact, on September 18th, we're going to be covering mega trends impacting incentives and recognition. So I encourage you to stick around, check emails that'll be coming up. And of course, if you ever have ideas for webinars that you think would be interesting, or perhaps you have an expertise you want to speak to, we encourage you to reach out to your Prestige account manager. Scan this QR code if you want to see the full schedule. And September 18th is when we will see you next. So thank you so much for being with us today, and we'll see you all next month. Bye-bye, everybody.